First thing that you need to understand is that not all records can be cleaned this way, and it will work. Some of them are worn out. Some of them are so dirty that glue or whatever else you have to clean it just won't help it. So if you try it a couple of times and it doesn't turn out exactly the way you want it to, try again, because it works most of the time. You're going to want to start off with a clean record, just a damp washcloth, just enough water to, you don't even want to leave spots on the record when you wipe it down, just enough water on the rag to help loosen any dirt or smears that's stuck to the vinyl, get all the loose debris off of it. And just make sure you're working with a clean surface. This is the device that I use to clean them. It's just an old, whatever it is, all-in-one type good way to destroy good records with this cheap tone arm and cartridge and stylus. But this is old, and this is what I use it for, as you can tell with all the dry wood glue here. But I recommend using an old turntable, not your daily turntable, because you will get glue all over everything. This is what I use. It seems to work best. Type Bond 2 in the blue bottle. You can use the green, or they make another one, I think 3. This one I have had the best results with. And then I just apply it generously. You want to give it enough glue to cover. And try not to get too much. You don't want a huge thick layer of glue on here. Thickness doesn't really accomplish much other than making it easier to peel. But a thicker skim or a thicker layer of glue doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the record any cleaner. And it's also going to take it a long time to dry, the thicker the layer is. You don't want to waste a whole lot of time once the glue is on the record. You just want to use your finger. I used to use for a while I used an old credit card with just extremely light pressure, and I read, you're not supposed to do that because you can scratch the records. I never scratched a record that way. Then I switched to using business cards, and that works pretty well, but you go through them pretty quickly. You can only get about 1 or 2 records with a business card before the glue will wear it out in here. But I've read and had my own results, very good results, with just using my finger. Plus, it allows me to really gauge how much pressure I'm using and how much material I want to force down into the grooves, because you want to use a little bit of force. You don't want to just lay it on here. You want to actually push it down so that it kind of, help it get down into the grooves as best it can. A lot of people say that the molecules that make up the glue are bigger than the depths of the groove. I don't know about all that, but just give it a little pressure, help it out some. Tends to work for me pretty good, pretty well. I'm just applying a little bit of pressure with my finger and just kind of carrying some of the excess glue towards the center of the record. And I'm just going to work my way all the way to the dead wax and try to leave as perfect of a line as possible, because any break right here will give you some issues when you go to peel off the glue. So you want to make sure that when you run that line all the way into the dead wax, that final line is a continuous bead and no flattened, thinned out surfaces. And sometimes you got to work with this a little bit to do what you want to do. Right, Bailey? You don't know. What do you know? It's right there. Now we start working back in. Carry some of this glue. Work that all the way back in and get that. Trying to get a good bead on that center. Because it kind of flattened out on me, and that's what you don't want, because when you go to pull it loose, it will flake and it won't stay with the rest of the piece. There we go. We got it nice and flat. I'm going to work it back out a little bit. And this one's done. You're going to have some glue that's going to hang over the edges. Just keep it out of the label, because if it gets on the label and dries, it's toast. This is going to flatten out a little bit. It'll run back in this direction. It rarely will run towards the center. This will be the last area to dry, but this record looks good. I've got some glue on my finger. I'm going to wipe that off, and we're going to start again in a second, and I'll show you what's next. There's a shot glass there. You can use whatever you want to use. Sometimes I take the roll off of a paper towel roll or something like that and cut it into sections, and then you can use that to set your records on. I like using shot glasses because they are pretty level, and you know, I have a few of them that I don't really even use, and they're just handy. And being level is an issue here, because you want this glue to dry. You want to flatten out nice and level so that it will be easier to peel. These little, if you can see these little edges back here where there's not some good coverage, that will a lot of the times will just flatten out and cover. And what you really want is you want that glue to kind of wrap over the edge of the record, because it's easier just to pull it off in one big piece when it goes that way. So you have this, and you're going to let it sit like this for I don't know, 10-12 hours until it's clear, dry, and we'll show you a picture of that when we get there. And once this side's dry, you'll flip it over, put it back on the record player, and apply another layer of glue to the other side. And we'll pick up the video then when we get to that point. We've come back. It's been about 10 minutes, and I just wanted to show you guys really quick how the glue here that was piled up here around the inside of the dead wax is starting to flatten out back this direction towards the record. And you can also see where some of the gaps around the edges are starting to fill in where the glue will settle. And you're also seeing we've got a little hole right here that's formed, a little bubble. That happens, and what you'll have to do, and I'll have to do, is go back and just hit that with just a dab of glue on top of it. It doesn't really matter. You could leave it and it's not going to hurt anything, but you know, just to cross all the T's and dot all the I's. Comparing the two, this is a double album set here, and I'm doing both of them. But this was the one that we did first. This is the one that I just did off camera, and you know, having a little bit of practice and getting warmed up to it always helps. But you can see definitely on this record I used just a little bit more glue, and has a much nicer, more even surface covering. It's laying a little flatter. I've got a good rounded edge around the edge of my record so that it will peel very nicely. I pushed it a little bit farther in, close to the label on the dead wax, still staying off of it. I've got a nice bead of glue around the inside, around the label, so that it will peel away nicely. And so this is more of along the lines of what you're looking for. I wish I did this instead of this one. This is the appearance that you want to have. You want to let these sit after you've coated both sides. You want to let them sit and cure. You want the glue to completely cure for at least 24 hours before you start to peel the glue off. And that's just to make sure that the glue dries completely all the way down inside the grooves. And you don't have a mess when you try to pull this off. The first thing I do is wipe it with a damp cloth, because I read that some guy was having trouble with static when he would pull the glue off, and he found out that if he wiped his records down with the damp cloth or paper towel before, that he had less static issues. And I tried it and I think he's right, so I did it. And it takes a whole 3 seconds. Find an edge, if you can see what I'm doing here. Find an edge, and just use your fingernail and break it to the point to where you can get a fingernail under here and start peeling. And it will peel pretty easily if you've done it correctly. And you can hear... I apologize for the break in the audio, but at this time in the video, my two daughters decided it was a good time to have a conversation with each other from either ends of the house. Yes, it's not getting... There we go. Sometimes you'll have a little residue around the edges. You just take your thumbnail and just kind of peel that off. Just check all the way around. Got the edge started on the other side. And start peeling. From here, it's your baby if you want to wipe them down. Feel free. I usually wipe mine down with a damp cloth, like a microfiber cloth.